So I open up and say greetings and welcome to the 2017 Black Sustainability Summit. This is about our fifth Q&A session that we're having today. This one is with Brother DJ Asante, who has been doing some magnificent work. For those who actually got a chance to watch his presentation, or those that have questions around the work that the brother has been doing in Senegal and where they started off developing in Mississippi. I'd love to have you introduce yourself, brother, and share just a little bit about your journey from Mississippi to Senegal, and then we'll open it up for questions as people have tuned in who have gotten a chance to watch your video, or just simply have some suggestions and questions around the development that you have in Senegal.
Okay, would love to. Well, again, my name is DJ Asante, and my family does have a major stronghold in the area of Mississippi, near the areas of the bordering Mississippi and Louisiana, which would be the west side of Mississippi, down into the Tylertown and into the coast area, which is Gulfport and Biloxi. And now Biloxi is kind of famous because many people are familiar with the casinos and resorts that are down there now. So this is originally where I'm from, as well as my journey kind of took place. I tell people anytime they speak to me, first of all, I'm not one of those people that feel like I know it all. I do feel there's always growth and room to grow and exchange with each other. And I think that's very apparent with this outstanding event that Sister Afia and Mother Devonta have put together. With that same spirit is the basis of a lot of the information and knowledge that I have. Many times when people hear Mississippi, they generally think of, a lot of the oppression, a lot of the segregation, and a lot of the people who were broken. But often they forget as well as there are many things that came out of Mississippi where people weren't broken, whether it was for, people who are celebrities as Morgan Freeman, Oprah Winfrey, James Earl Jones, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are just basic names people are familiar with. There were two types of people in Mississippi, two groups, and we say this a lot. People who are from Mississippi would attest to this. There were those who were broken, and we understand why they were broken. And there were those who refused to be broken. And in those groups that refused to be broken, it was the point of passing down legacy information, legacy businesses, legacy properties, and passing on the vision of what should be happening and taking place with your generation and the generations after you. So often it seems like to some people, maybe not everyone, but to some people I may be a little bit advanced. I swear, as they say here in Georgia, on everything I love, it's not because of me. I'm indeed standing on the shoulders of my ancestors and the information and things that they presented and gave and still give to me to this day. So in Mississippi, we do have, and we still have to this day because of segregation. We found that one of the things that kind of diverted and suppressed our communities in many different ways that we weren't expecting was this thing called immigration. So there were some communities in Mississippi that maintained that do for self, Kujichagulia self-determination ideology, and they passed it on from generation to generation. So my mother before me was an accountant, CPA, as well as a teacher. My father as well was a construction and owned 2 farms and about over 35 pieces of real estate that we managed as a family. So, and they received it from their parents. My grandmother on my maternal side, she was also an accountant. She was also a teacher herself. My grandfather on my maternal side, he was also a builder and owned about 5 farms. So a lot of that poured into me as I then got further into my expertise. So coming out of Mississippi, these were the things that we held. I love to tell people this all the time. In the communities that I lived in, the doctor was a black man. All of your professionals that you can think of, the doctors, the principals, the accountants, the attorneys, the surveyors, everyone I knew was black that offered these type of professional services. And I say that a little bit because it was kind of a bubble a little bit, because some of the, when I came out of those areas of Mississippi, the only time I saw people of European descent was when they were coming to deliver food to one of our family stores. We had maybe about 5 different family stores. And so I would see the Coca-Cola man, maybe there'd be 2 Coca-Cola men One would be a black man, and the other would be a person of Caucasian or European descent. Then there would be, there was Nabisco and Lay's chips, and this is the only time I saw them. So when I got about the age of 11 and 12 years old, and I heard about a lot of the things that were going on within the country, I just couldn't believe when they were saying people of European descent were doing these types of acts of oppression. I couldn't believe it because in my mind, they only deliver food. And I had to come to terms with that. And that is because of the self-determination of those black folks before me and what they had in those communities. So coming from that, they actually pushed me to build on the next level. So the next level of that became obviously becoming an accountant, an actuary. Many people are not familiar with what an actuary is, but that's a person who specifically deals with risk and losses. Insurance companies and banks primarily hire actuaries to put out plots and plans of what's going to happen and actually control as best you can those things, from everything from taxes to loss to what you might expect with catastrophes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then it allowed me to go further in learning how to be an international trustee. Many people hear about it. They've heard about how banks and things use trust, how these large people, our current president, as a matter of fact, the reason most of his assets and what he has is hidden, and the only way he can come out is if he brings it out as a special subpoena, because most of what he has is held in a thing called trust. So they pushed me to that level. So I currently work as an international trustee, private-based, because there are different types of trustees. If you said a manager, most people realize there are different types of managers. The same thing with trustees. So mine is primarily private-based. I'm a private bonded international trustee. I'm a private bonded international attorney. In fact, I manage and have clients in four continents now. And so I've been doing this for over 20 years now. Always learning, always growing. One thing I've learned, which is something I've realized in Mississippi, is without Umoja, which is a key Swahili word for unity. I know many of the people on this call already know that, but without that, it is impossible to compete on the international scene. When I'm in Senegal, when I'm in Gambia, when I'm in Ghana, South Africa, when I'm in Europe, I'm in Central America, South America, what I constantly come across is people working in groups. I come across Chinese people, all of those areas working in groups for a common goal. Even though they may disagree at certain points and areas, they recognize the common goal. Japanese, right. Hindu, et cetera. So this gives you a little bit of experience. I think I heard somebody had a question or something.
I had a question also. So I saw the same thing when I was in Senegal years ago. A lot of the Chinese participate marketing strategy-wise in the Gambia and also the Senegal area, and also in Ghana. They're trying to impose their values, a lot of it from the Asian point of view of making money in Africa. If they can do it
Absolutely.
Here in America, in the black neighborhoods, they also do it also in Africa as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And if I can, since we're a family, I'm assuming primarily on the phone, let me deal with a point of self-reflection in this point here. Primarily, the previous president of Senegal, Abdoulaye Wade, he made agreements with the Japanese for fishing and et cetera. And the reason he made these agreements was simply because the agreements that most African countries have with Europe and America are horrible. Absolutely horrible.
I agree.
So it looks bad, and it is bad, but we have to be relative, right? If you get 10 cents on the dollar for your fish and for your resources with the European contract, and the Japanese agreed to give you 25 cents on the same dollar, both of them are horrible, but at least you're getting more than the 10 cents. As well as the Japanese opened up schools, trade schools in Senegal. Echo Ipan, which is in an area of right off of the VDN, which is a main road in downtown Dakar. there's an Echo Ifan. And what they're doing is the Senegalese get to learn the trade and technical things that the Japanese young adults and college students get to learn. And so one of the things when we're looking at our past, as I said, Kofa, looking at our past to see where we need to go with our future, there was a purposeful derailment of an outstanding seer by the name of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who was attempting and was really successful in creating network and trade routes with the U.S. and the continent of Africa. He was derailed for the purposes because everyone, I'm sure, is familiar with the different types of European conferences that have agreed over the past 100 years to make sure Africa stayed underdeveloped. And then they turned around and dumped a lot of drugs in our neighborhood. So we're not making the connections in the in-routes in Africa as we should be. And when we do get there, we do run into some headwinds and some silliness and some pookies and et cetera. And you have to learn how to outmaneuver that as well. But I always say the Chinese, in the end, you rarely find an extremely old Chinese person in America. Likewise, you rarely find an extremely old Hindu or East Indian in America. They do their work in America. They may have a home in America, but I guarantee you they have a compound in India or China or Japan. And so
I agree.
This becomes the reality of what we have to pick up. And one of the things I've learned in my journey is that it's not a one-size-fits-all. I do recognize that every one of us is at different levels and different stages. Our families are at different levels and different stages. And so what is comfortable for you, and it may not be comfortable for the next person, and I pride myself in this, in not doing it necessarily for my clients, but making sure they know how it's done. And there becomes a purpose and a reason to that. Because we're on the back end, unfortunately, of trade agreements, on competition, on a regional, state, regional, national, and international level, as many of us who know it, the stronger we become. It can't be the old European paradigm. I hold all of the secrets and ideas to myself until I'm ready to pass, and then I'll pass it to just this select few. Unfortunately, we can't play the game that way because we didn't have a 400-plus year head start of free labor, free land, and being able to abuse and misuse the system. So since we didn't have that, we have to play the game a little bit different. So it is very important to me that anything that we can present to people who are interested in, let me just clarify this one thing. I don't believe it's an either or, it's an and including. Some people feel like it's either you need to be in America or you need to be in Africa, one or the other. I believe it's both. I believe our ancestors, the only reason Chinese, Japanese, Hindus can come in here in America and do business is because of the sacrifices that our ancestors made. If not, the Klan would have met them at the borders as they're trying to meet them still today and would have hung them all. So because of that sacrifice, that's why they get to be here. Likewise, because of that sacrifice, we have an unquestionable right, not only to be here, but to benefit and be repaired and repaid for all that we've done. But also, we have to rebuild our homeland. One of the things I did in the continent that's a bit different from everyone else, in Mississippi, we used to have a statement, and that statement was, sometimes the way black folk work is if you really want something from them, and you act like you really want it, they're not going to give it to you. But if you act like you're really not interested, they're going to give it to you. So when I'm in the continent of Africa, I do not really break my neck in this idea of I'm looking to be brotherhood, I'm looking to be, family, et cetera, et cetera. And because I did not come with that basis, because I came with other types of bases, they opened up for that. And as they opened up for that, that was really the goal, and we ended up creating different connections. And I see that there are beautiful people in the continent of Africa who know who we are and looking for us to come back, and there's some people who have issues and things of that nature. And so in building all of these inroads and networks, I'm able to help our clients and our people in ways they didn't expect. For instance, Gambia, since we're talking about Senegal and Gambia, between 1979 and 1984, they were trying to create a thing called Senegambia, where Senegal and Gambia worked as one country. It fell apart, etc. But most people are not familiar. Gambia has the lowest cost of living per the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Gambia has the lowest cost of living in the continent.
Yeah.
Now, why
Right.
is that important? That becomes important for what'd you say?
I agree. I've been to Gambia several times, and trust me, it's like brothers and sisters that need to get, hey, rather paying that $150,000 for a house, take that money,
Yeah,
go to the continent, you can live like a king.
absolutely. But it takes time for our people to gather this. What I mean by that, some countries in the continent, they do not allow for land ownership via deed. And
I
there's
agree.
a reason for that. Understandable reason. They just got out of colonization between 1950 and 1993 because, you know, South Africa didn't get away from colonial rule until 1993, 94. So they're just getting out of it. And unfortunately, the majority of land in certain countries like Ghana was owned by Europeans, English and British expats. So they had to pass laws to make it where they couldn't keep coming in and buying the land because whoever owns the land ends up controlling the country. And so they ended up creating these leasehold agreements. And I do understand sometimes that's not comfortable. People 99-year leases, $150-year leases, and then they come with the idea of if you do not use the land or not properly using the land, someone can come on and make a claim and start using the land. I do understand that issue. Senegal and Gambia both offer land ownership by deed, which the deed can and the title can be and has been, and mine personally has been insured. The title has been insured. So just like we have title insurance here, title insurance there. And so there is a possibility of owning land by deed. But to go backwards just a little bit in the point of why is it so important, the cost of living. People try to understand why are the Mexicans, our brothers and sisters from Mexico, willing to walk all of the desert and fight all that they fight to come here and work these low paying jobs, these menial jobs, this minimum wage paying jobs. Because the cost of living of Mexico, according to the IMF and the World Bank, as far as North and majority of Central America, and all of Central America, no country has a lower cost of living than Mexico. So for the Mexicans, when they're coming across the border to work here, for what they make here on a low-paid job, it ends up taking care of a whole family, as the brother was saying, living like a king. Meanwhile, we're here struggling, and a lot of our elders who get $600 to $1,000 a month with the cost of living constantly moving up are struggling. When there are additional options so that they can have a cost of living that's well within their control. So Gambia is outstanding. And what I do is when I tell any of my clients, anything that we're presenting, we're actually doing. As Sister Thea opened up. Go ahead.
I'd like to piggyback on that. When I was in Costa Rica, I was in Costa Rica last year. And I was also, I've been there like twice. And I noticed my first time when I went there, I went to this place, it's called Antonio Dominica. It was so many white folks there. And the land was for sale. And the cost of living of Costa Rica has went up. Matter of fact, it costs more to live in Costa Rica because of white folks coming in there to live than other parts of Panama, Nicaragua, Colombia. Costa Rica extremely went up in tourism because of Europeans coming in there. Now, the same thing in Senegal. What Senegal had done, Senegal had, even though they speak French, a lot of French was coming in there. When I was in Europe, I was watching this TV commercial, and the commercial was showing Africa, and they had quoted saying Africa is Europe's playground. Let's say, and that has a lot of things to say about that. When the Europeans that came into Senegal, they had raised, they would buy a land. Now, you know, if you've been to Sally, outside of Dakar, Sally, what it was a small village. Europeans came in there with the money they had because they had charged Europeans twice as much money. So for land for Africans, say I gave this land for Africans for $20,000. The Europeans said, "Hey, I give you $100,000 for the land. They came in and built a whole infrastructure of bars, clubs, housing, food, department stores, clothing stores, the whole works. Made it much harder for Africans in Dakar right now, this very day, to even buy property. You want to buy a piece of property, a beachfront property, even that's like $20,000 to $50,000 to buy land alone, if there's any left in Dakar itself.
Now,
My friends from Senegal, they had to buy land outside of Dakar just to maintain a decent living. Now, in the Gambia,
the repeat or
I think there's some feedback. Elisha Hall, if you could mute your phone, that'd be excellent. I'm gonna try. Because we have a lot of questions that are coming in. Brother Olasanya, I know you were finishing up a sentence, and then I want to open it up to the rest of these folks. I've got a couple of people that have typed questions in, so Brother Olasanya, I'm sorry for the interruption. I wanted to make sure that
I was hearing the feedback as well.
Okay.
But in the aftermath of Gambia, including they gave rid of the so-called dictator Yahya Jammeh, they finally got rid of that guy, but they let him go with benefits. That's a long story. I mean, anybody that kill and rape people, destroy students and so forth, for trying to make a decent living should be punished, but that's another story. But anyhow, the living in the Gambia is a lot lower than Senegal. It's because of the trade of a lot of Europeans coming into French Europeans coming into Senegal has been buying a lot of property, and they.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Let me just express this real quick, because you brother, you sound to be a good bit more advanced. Many people are not familiar with Sali. Sali is an area in Boer. If you look at Sali like a city, and then Boer is the state, and the state is called in Boer. And what he's speaking of is a city where some French and Belgium came into that area and bought the land up, and in buying the land up, made all these different types of resorts and things. And so what constantly keeps happening, whether it's Senegal, Gambia with the British doing it, or Costa Rica, unfortunately, because we're not engaged internationally, we don't take an area and say, look, we're going to pick 2 or 3 countries. And these 2 or 3 countries, we're going to have an agenda, and we're going to go after these areas and carve us out some land and start having our elders live there. We're going to start having our young people live there, travel back and forth, create trade and businesses and things of that nature. By default, it ends up someone else can do it. And they come in and do it, and they take advantage of the area. So the same thing with Costa Rica. Not only is it a large Caucasian population, but you have other organizations and other populations who are also deciding to take over Costa Rica. So it's a thing that we have to do better with. In saying that, some simple techniques, and I know there's some questions. A lot of people, maybe not here, but many people use their debit card, credit card to pay for many of their items in a day. What I would highly suggest to people, if you're on step 1, go into your credit card statements or your bank statements, find out where you're spending money at restaurants and places. Take 10% of that money and earmark 5% of it to go towards your saving for a goal of creating you another location. You always, there's a statement in Mississippi that says there's a poor rat that only has one hole to run into, because all the cat has to do is block one hole and you're stuck. So you have to have more than one place. And this is the reality. All people who are extremely wealthy have 3 and 4 locations outside the U.S. And the second, take that other 5% and earmark it for Black-owned businesses in America.
You're right.
The reason it's hard for many Black folks to do business in the continent of Africa is because we've disconnected ourselves here from doing business with each other. So because of that, you lose that flavor of what it's like to do business with a Black person. And the same things I come across in the continent of Africa, I came across in Mississippi. I laugh and say this: I moved 4,000 or 5,000 miles just to move back to Mississippi, because that's just what it reminds me of. And so the ability to make those different changes if you're just starting out is very important. For those people who are older, and who are at the age of retirement, what I highly suggest is coming and viewing the places. The banks in Senegal and Gambia are part of the IMF contract that allows them to do direct business with the U.S. What does that mean for you? That means your check, your Social Security check, your retirement or pension check can come into an American account and can be transferred into those accounts with no blocks, with no extra steps, not having to go through a Spin Swift bank or none of that. Direct.
Brother,
you have access to it.
Brother DJ, you're on a roll, and we're coming up on 2:30 soon. I wanted to continue that, what it is that you're speaking about, but I wanted to give some context. I think Ibufen, I hope I'm not messing up the name too poorly. I have unmuted your microphone. They asked a question as you were speaking, and was wondering if you can provide concrete strategies for how Black folks here can actually start to build community on the continent. I think you're going through it, but I just wanted to make sure that I asked their question, and I've unmuted their microphone in case they wanted to add anything else to the question.
No, that's okay. I think that's sufficient. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's sufficient. Okay, concrete. I generally like to begin with the first step. Here in the United States, you can find acreage for $500 to $1,000. Between Savannah and Brunswick, Georgia, you can find that, as well as you can find that south of Atlanta and east of Atlanta. You can also find it in Mississippi. I always suggest that you first get back in touch with the land. Do a little bit of farming yourself. See what it's like to live off-grid just a little bit yourself, because depending on what part of the continent you decide to move to. Now, you can move into an area like Johannesburg or Cape Town, and you feel like you're in the middle of downtown New York, and you don't need any of that. But if you're trying to get to a simpler way of life, to a less costly way of life and living closer, you need to have a little bit of experience here. And then also that always leaves you land here in the U.S. that will allow you many opportunities and options. And we'll show you how to put that land in a tax-exempt entity that you control and that your family controls, so you're not dealing with unnecessary property taxes after you pay for the $500 to $1,000 for the property. Next step, if you want to move into the continent, if after you get that experience, which is I highly suggest, start making some studies and some trips. Study about the continent, the areas that you want to go into, or get with someone who does, have studied it. Again, IMF, World Bank, what are the goals of that country? What is its constitution? Any country I've listed to you, I've pulled the constitution on each of them. What state are you looking to live in? And if you can't find someone, I'm more than willing to answer the question and point you in the right direction. How to get with the embassy of those countries, so you can find out what options are available for expats in that country. So here in Atlanta, they have it's not an embassy, I can't remember what they call it, but there's a representative for Senegal here in Atlanta, and there's the embassy in D.C. You can contact both of those. There's also for Gambia. What programs are available for expats? What programs and things that are earmarked for us to come and do business there? So that's an easy way to also qualify. I highly suggest also, which is what this really is qualifying. Know what you want. What is it that you're looking up for in an area that you would like to live, and why? Is it because of a relationship to that area? Many people have their DNA testing, and they're finding out, okay, my maternal link is coming from this area. Is that why you're looking to connect there? And if you're looking to connect there, find out what the embassies say of specials and programs they're offering for expats, and then ask them or someone else to give you a connection to an elder in the communities that you're looking into. The continent of Africa, because it's Black folk, they work not only on the legal system, but they work on the ancient cultural system. So any area that you're looking into moving into, just because you've got deed to the property does not mean you're a part of the community. So any property we've bought or purchased in any area in the continent of Africa, we always go and we get the blessings of the elders in that area first. And we make sure that they're on board with us. That becomes extremely important, because you can have property like we have property in houses in the continent of Africa, but the people in the community know it's Black folks that's part of the community that owns that house, and so they don't run up in there. They tell the Pookies who are looking to run up into somewhere, no, you can't hit that house. Go down the street with a Caucasian that's from France or Belgium. You can hit that house. And y'all best be believing that happens. I'm sorry I had to come that wrong with it, but that's how it is. You do have people that will run up in your house with nothing but themselves. They ain't got no guns and bullets and all of that because they really don't have the money for that. But the reality is you do get people who get broken into. And it's primarily the Belgium and the French. My houses and properties never, ever, ever, ever had it. No one I know has ever, ever had it. Why? Because we're part of the community. Right now, there's a festival. They just started certain festivities in Senegal and Gambia. We send things to the elders, and elders give it out to the community on behalf of our family. So that's an important part, connecting with elders that's in that community. Then go visit. It's not that expensive. If you start going online, check on Tuesdays and Wednesdays after 2 p.m. That's your best time to check. You can do a basic Google search for where you're trying to go to. You'll find a lot of great sites for there. I've been able to find round trip to Senegal here recently for as low as round trip $1,195. That's extremely cheap, taking into consideration I got to fly up to D.C. and from D.C. over to Senegal, and then they'll bring me back. And so that's an outstanding way to do that. Also, when you're looking at your passports, I would suggest to our people now, if you have a passport, update it. If you don't have a passport, get one, okay? Also look into the passport card. There's a thing called the passport card. Now we're dealing with your ability to move internationally. Passport card allows you to move within the continent of North America without being stopped. Why does that become important? If I wanted to fly, now you can fly directly to Cuba now, but there was a time you couldn't. If I wanted to fly directly to Cuba, I had to go somewhere else. I can ride into Mexico now with a passport. I can ride all the way down south of Mexico into Belize, which I've done before, and so on and so forth. So I would highly suggest having those. A lot of times people are worried about shots and things for health. You don't have to worry about that as much. If you're taking the necessary natural supplement, consult with your doctor now. Make sure you consult with your doctor. But my doctor is a holistic doctor. They believe that everything that ails a body, there's something in nature that responds to it. Often to make sure that I'm going back and forth to the continent, I'm not getting ill and things of that nature because I take certain supplements. An oil called Neem, N-E-E-M. It's outstanding for helping with the malaria bug. And I tell people when you're in the U.S., because they're not used to hearing malaria, if you just say bad flu, that's all you have to say. Because what's so funny, we look at malaria as something different. It's like an extremely bad flu. But I express this to people. People in the continent of Africa who are not used to the cold and flu, when they catch the cold over there, it just about kills them. The difference is our bodies has gotten used to the cold and flu over here in the northern sections of the globe, as it's called, and others are not, and they have become used to malaria bugs. Their bodies have gotten used to that and created antibodies for it. So Brother when we DJ, come in, we just have, yes.
Brother DJ, I'm so sorry. I have to cut you off. We're about 2 minutes over our time. You are bringing that fire and that heat, and we give thanks. I would like to, I think Dr. Uwa is on the line who will be taking it moving forward for the next session. But before we stop, since it's very abrupt and you were given a lot of information, if there's a way for people to connect with you that would like to work with you, support your work, learn a little bit more, perhaps maybe even figure out ways for you all to collaborate or learn from one another. If you would share the contact information that you're comfortable with for people to reach out to you and to connect if they want to do business or if they like to collaborate, do you mind sharing that information? Or I can have them to email us and I can pass on their questions directly to you if that's even easier, since I know you're not at a computer at the moment.
Okay, I'm open to all of the above, but you can easily reach out to me by Universal Spiritualist Assembly at gmail.com, just like it's spelled. Universal Spiritualist Assembly at gmail.com. Send the questions or what have you. I don't care about getting calls, so you can call me at 770-377-9387. Again, 770-377-9387. And what's most important, if I can close with this, is implementing one step. Find out what is your one step and implement it. It doesn't have to be big. just one step. And the next thing you know, you're moving.
Well, give thanks. We all want to thank you so much for your support and participation with this summit, and we're going to go ahead and turn it over. You can stay on the line if you'd like to listen to the next presenter. Dr. Uwah, you are up. If anybody wants to say anything else to Brother DJ Asante, you have his contact information, and I've sent it in the group chat. Thank you.